So at the time of recording, it is 1 p.m. in the UK on the 13th of October. And a friend alerted me to the fact that if you type in Zionism into Google, the first thing that comes up is Wikipedia, which is one of the most popular websites in the world, and for sure the top encyclopedic website. And here's what it says. Zionism. Directly under it, it says, Zionists wanted to create a Jewish state in Palestine with as much land, as many Jews, and as few Palestinian Arabs as possible. I've I could not possibly imagine a more biased, hateful, vitriolic way of trying to hate on Zionism and describe it in such a partisan way. And then I click on the link, and you'll see it says over here, literally that what we just saw in one of the first sentences. Zionism is an ethno-cultural nationalist movement that emerged in Europe in the late 9th century. Zionist wants to create a Jewish state in Palestine with as much land, as many Jews, and as few Palestinian Arabs as possible. Oh boy. Now look, I don't know whether this is something new that was added in, and I don't know if you're able to work on editing a Wikipedia article, because I know you need to have edited a certain amount already, and I know these things can change. But many people have actually pointed out that there are all kinds of anti-Israel biases on Wikipedia. And I'd like us to, first of all, just unpack why this is clearly such a biased and anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, certainly not an objective way of describing Zionism. So it says, Zionists wanted to create a Jewish state in Palestine. Now, first of all, there's no explanation on what they mean by the term Palestine. So they choose to call it the land Palestine, but they could have said in what was the ancient land of the Jews. They choose to call it Palestine. What is the term Palestine? The term Palestine is actually a European colonialist term. It was imposed upon the land. The land was known as the land of Israel prior to that, but then as an attempt to try and sever the connection between the Jews and the land, they call it Palestine. Who was that? The Romans. The Romans renamed it Syria Palestina. So it's funny, they portray Palestine as the indigenous name, the indigenous land, the indigenous people. But actually, it's the other way around. But there's no context at all in that. It just says in Palestine. Even though there was never a sovereign state called Palestine, it was just a name given to this plot of land. And it doesn't give any sense of where that is. And then it says that Zionism was about having as many Jews and as few Palestinian Arabs as possible. It was certainly about having Jews returning to their homeland. That's for sure. There's no question about that. But this line, and as few Palestinian Arabs as possible, this is just unhistoric. Whether that approach would be right or wrong, that is not what history tells us. The history is absolutely clear that there were Jews living in that land for thousands of years, many of them forcefully exiled and attempting to return. And then from the 7th century onwards, you started to have Arabs living there. You had a significant increase in the 18th and 19th century, or often actually in similar time as Jews started to go back as well, and they recultivated the land. And so that incentivized more Arab migration there. But this notion that the plan was to have as few Arabs there as possible, actually, at every single step of the kind of project of Zionism, from the early Zionist thinkers to the first prime ministers of Israel, they all said, we have absolutely no interest in kicking out anyone, any Arabs. We're happy to live among them. It's not about having as few Palestinian Arabs as possible. They said we're happy to split the land in two and we can have two states, a Jewish state and an Arab state. No one's going to be kicked out. No one's going to, we'll just, both live here. And then after that didn't work, the displacement that this is clearly referring to, where it's saying as few Palestinian Arabs as possible, the fact that Arabs, some of them were displaced from their homes, wasn't because Zionism was about kicking them out. The Jewish people in the Jewish state have always been happy to have non-Jews living in the land. But one little condition one little condition, which is they don't kill us. Is that unreasonable? And by the way, if someone says, yeah, but you can't come into our land and displace us, and then we get upset when we retaliate. No. There was no coming to the land and kicking anyone out. Jews came to the land. The Arab armies in 1947 and 48 tried to kick the Jews out of the land, get rid of any Jewish sovereignty there. And then, in fighting back, in protecting and defending themselves, many Arabs were displaced because they chose to have as few Jews as possible in the land. It's completely the reverse. It is such a forgery, really. I can assure you that any time in Israel's history, even I would say the more right-wing Zionists, if the Arabs living there in the land were to turn around and say, you know what, we're happy to be in a Jewish state, we're happy to be part of a Jewish state, I assure you, absolutely assure you, there would be no issues. There wouldn't be calls for resettlement. There wouldn't be calls for, checkpoints and blockades and occupation, all these things, because everything that Israel's done that people in the anti-Zionist camps lament was done because it was self-inflicted by the Arab leadership who chose to go to war, and then Israel had to respond at every time when they tried to go to war against the Jews. So this is just, frankly, completely full of lies. I can also prove this to you from quotes from Ben Gurion. Here's what David Ben Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel, said this was when the idea was, people were saying, is this going to mean Arabs are going to have to leave if Israel reestablishes itself? And he said to his son Amos in 1937, we do not want to, and we do not have to expel Arabs and take their place. All our aspiration is built on the assumption, proven throughout all our activity in the land of Israel, that there is enough room in the country for ourselves and the Arabs. Even after the establishment of the state, we do not want to expel the Arabs from it, and certainly we do not want to remove them by force. In 1947, Ben Gurion on this topic at the UN Special Committee on Palestine, he said, we do not want to drive out the Arabs, we want to live with them. I believe with all my heart that the great majority of the Arab people in Palestine want to live in peace with us and enjoy the blessings of progress and development which we have brought to this country, and which can be theirs to share if they are willing. I can say without hesitation that it's our intention to continue living with them in peace and to work with them for the advancement of all the people. So this quote in Wikipedia is so clearly just historically, it's a lie. And this is meant to be Wikipedia, the gold standard of encyclopedias online. So they're saying that Zionism wants to create a Jewish state in Palestine. No context to what that land means. No context to how this was, the ancient land of the Jewish people. And I'm not seeing that really in the first paragraph. I suppose it says a region corresponding to the land of Israel and Judaism and of central importance in Jewish history. But it could be much more explicit about the fact that it is the ancient Jewish homeland. It also talks about Zionism as an ethno-cultural nationalist state. It's true that it is about being a Jewish state. There's absolutely no question about that. No question about that. But to say it's ethno, meaning only Jews are allowed to live there, non-Jews are perfectly well allowed to live there. I've just been talking to a Druze Israeli recently. And by the way, to call it ethnic implies that Judaism is somehow doesn't allow converts, doesn't allow people to, it's entirely racial. Judaism is not racial at all. So anyone can become Jewish, so it's not ethnic in that sense. But it is ultimately a Jewish state. But the lies here are just, so there are so many there. And the fact is that when it says as few Palestinian Arabs as possible, the point is that all along, that was never the Jewish people's aim or intention. But the fact that there has been things like displacement is a result of the Arabs' desire. It's their ideology, not Zionism. It's their hateful ideology that cannot make space for a Jewish state. And of course, for those who say, well, ultimately, yeah, you might want this land, but ultimately, this is the Palestinians' land. Again, absolutely zero context or explanation for the fact that there has never been a unique Palestinian national cause identity. And the leaders of the Palestinian cause, both past and present, have always said that they'd have to be part of another Arab country of southern Syria. That's what Haj Amin al-Husseini thought that the Palestinian Arabs were part of. They should be part of southern Syria. If they would have won the war in 48, then it would have been Jordan having a chunk, Egypt having a chunk, Lebanon having a chunk of the land. No Palestinian state. And so it is entirely focused on a national identity that is created not because it's genuine, but because it's trying to be used as a cynical ploy to upend the Jews and the Jewish state. There already is a Palestinian state in Jordan, made up of majority Palestinians, which was also part of a land that was described as Palestine under the British Mandate, that region. No complaint there. Sorry, to the leadership of Jordan that it's not run by Palestinian Arabs, only in Israel. And when they consider themselves part of the Arab nation, they've already got over 20 Arab states. So the framing of this, I don't think one can get away from the fact that it is so clearly biased, and it would be, for someone that didn't know much about Israel, they would really use it, look at this and think this is illegitimate or it's wrong. I also think that when, at the same time, when of course Israel has shown always a willingness to treat non-Jews living there with the same level of rights and respect and all the rest of it, and I've always said to the Arabs living there, we want to live in peace alongside you. We also have to be clear that that the cause of Zionism does want to re-establish the land as being a Jewish state, and that's okay. A state that can still look after minorities, but ultimately its character, its culture, its society is Jewish. And there's nothing wrong with that, because this is the Jewish people's land. It is the Jewish people's home, and everyone is entitled to a home. So I'm really saying this because I think that we should become aware that what we're told is objective sources of news, information, in case you hadn't noticed, can often be biased, can be full of mistruths, or can be missing relevant context. So it's important to be aware of that. And if any of you are aware of how to be involved in Wikipedia's editorial process, please do comment. But I think perhaps, given this, we should make more people aware of the fact that you can't always take what you see at Wikipedia at face value. If you've made it so far in this video, I have a request for you. JTV has been having a really big impact in spreading the truth about Israel and creating positive associations with the Jewish people, Judaism, and Israel. We've really grown a lot, particularly in the last year, and we're having a really significant impact, both for Jews and non-Jews. But I really want to take JTV to the next level so we can start to compete with the other big online media beasts that are often peddling anti-Israel content. And the way we're going to do that is to scale even faster. So I'd love to build a team where we have other presenters doing shows like me, that start doing documentaries, supplementary content, animated content, etc., etc. And to do that, I'd like to build a bit of a team. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one fundraising day, just one, where we try and build up some funding in order to fund such a team. Now, to do that, it's going to obviously require people to get involved. And I'm wondering if you would consider, if you're watching JTV content and appreciate what we do and want to help partner with us in taking this to the next level and spreading the truth farther and wider than ever before, I wonder if you'd consider partnering with us simply by running a mini page on the fundraiser that we do, where you just reach out to your contacts on that day that we choose to fundraise and see if they'll all chip in. If you'd be up for doing that, of which I would be so grateful, then please click on the Google form link in the video description of this video, where you can simply just put in a few contact details. It'll be a very small commitment, as I say, literally just one day that we'll all agree upon as a collective community. But the impact is going to be so big. There's such strength in numbers. If we all pull together and do this, we can take this to the next level. And as I say, all of us can partner together in bringing and spreading the truth to the whole world. So please do consider clicking on that link, filling in the form, and I'll be in touch very soon to talk about the next steps. Small commitment, but a big impact. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.